$150. We don't serve beggars here. My sister's voice sliced through the bank lobby, every head turning, while I stood there with my withdrawal slip trembling in my hand. I didn't fight back. Not yet. No, this story doesn't start at that counter. It starts on a gray Portland morning, the air cold enough to sting, when I opened a small wooden box my grandfather left me, a box marked, "For the kindest one." Inside was a key, and a truth I'd ignored for years. That day, humiliation felt final, but the next day I learned power can whisper louder than pride. I grew up in a house where love was measured by achievement. My father, Robert, believed affection should be earned preferably with a six-figure paycheck. My mother, Elaine, was no softer. She spent her life protecting the family's image like it was an heirloom vase that couldn't be scratched. Veronica, my older sister, fit their idea of perfection. She wore ambition like perfume, sharp and sweet, impossible to escape. Caleb, my brother, was the golden boy who said all the right things and made sure to be on the winning side of every argument. And then there was me, Quinn the quiet one, the placeholder between their stories of success. When people ask why I never fought harder for their attention, I think of that birthday when I was 9. I'd painted them a lighthouse, tiny brushstrokes of white and blue that I thought captured how light could fight darkness. I still remember the smell of acrylic and the way my heart pounded as I handed it to my parents at the dinner table. My father barely looked at it before asking what Veronica had bought. She'd used her allowance to get a small crystal vase. Everyone clapped. My painting sat on the sideboard, forgotten under the glare of the chandelier. That was the first time I understood silence could swallow you whole. Years later, nothing had changed. At family dinners, I became background noise. Veronica's promotions, Caleb's new clients, my mother's charity events, those were the acceptable topics. Once I tried to share that I'd been volunteering at a community garden that just won a local grant. I got out 3 words before Veronica laughed and announced her new title at the bank. My father raised his glass. My mother asked about her new car. I sat there smiling, my excitement dissolving into the mashed potatoes I couldn't taste. People like to say time heals, but what it really does is harden. You stop expecting warmth. You start building walls. Mine were quiet and clean, just like my apartment. I worked in data numbers didn't judge, they just told the truth. After years of being dismissed, I found a strange comfort in algorithms. They didn't care who your parents favored. The only person who ever really saw me was my grandfather, Arthur Hale. He was gentle, always smelling faintly of pine and old paper. He used to say, "Kindness is not weakness, Quinn. It's just quieter power." Before he passed, he left me a small wooden box and a note. "For the kindest one, use it when they forget who you are." Inside was an old-fashioned key. I didn't understand it then, but I kept it close like a secret I wasn't ready to read. So when that freezing Tuesday morning came, when Mrs. Patterson called in tears because her heater was broken and the repairman wanted cash, I didn't hesitate. I promised her I'd help. I just needed to withdraw $150. Simple, right? That's what I thought until I walked into Glassview Bank and saw Veronica behind the glass walls smiling like she owned the world. The line at Glassview moved slowly, the air thick with the faint scent of disinfectant and static. I could see Veronica through the glass office wall, her heels clicking against the marble, her laughter ringing too loud the way it always did when she wanted people to notice her. She looked exactly like the version of success my parents worshipped, sleek bun designer suit, smile calibrated to impress. When our eyes met, her expression flickered, then settled into that familiar smirk, the one that said she still saw me as the family disappointment. When it was my turn, I stepped up to the counter and handed the teller my withdrawal slip. Before the girl could process it, Veronica glided over the scent of her perfume, arriving before she did. "Well, well," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Didn't expect to see you here. What can we do for you today, Quinn?" Her tone made my skin prickle. "Just need to withdraw $150, I said quietly. She let out a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. $150. She leaned closer, lowering her voice but making sure everyone could still hear. "We don't really serve beggars here. Are you sure you even have that much in your account?" Laughter flickered from somewhere behind me. The teller's hands froze mid-air. I felt heat crawl up my neck, that same sting I'd felt 1,000 times before. Every dinner table humiliation, every dismissive glance condensed into this single moment. My lips parted, but no words came. For a second, I saw the 9-year-old version of myself again clutching that forgotten lighthouse painting. I saw my grandfather's kind eyes, and something inside me, something long buried, shifted. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just nodded, turned, and walked out. The sound of the glass door closing behind me was soft, almost kind. Outside, the wind was sharp enough to hurt. I stood there on the frozen sidewalk, pulse thudding in my ears. Humiliation has a taste metallic, cold, unforgettable. But under the shame was something new, a current, a clarity. As I started walking home, I thought about the wooden box, about the key that had never fit any lock I knew. Maybe it wasn't meant to. Maybe it was a reminder. And that was the moment the burn began, not the kind that destroys, but the kind that forges. That night, the quiet inside my apartment felt heavier than usual. The radiator hummed like it was the only thing brave enough to make a sound. I sat on my couch coat, still on hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had already gone cold. Humiliation lingered in my chest like smoke. I'd spent years trying to prove that kindness could survive in a family like mine, but kindness had limits. And that morning I'd reached them. I glanced toward the bookshelf where the small wooden box my grandfather left me sat tucked between 2 old finance manuals. The note inside had yellowed slightly over time. For the kindest one, use it when they forget who you are. I ran my thumb over the faded ink. He'd known this day would come, hadn't he? The day I'd need to remember that quiet didn't mean powerless. I placed the cup down, opened my laptop, and the glow of the screen washed the room in pale light. Most people knew me as a freelance data analyst, the woman who worked late for mid-level firms and sent polite emails. What no one knew was that I'd built something far bigger, a private fund run under the name Shell Code 7. It started as an experiment, a predictive algorithm I'd written years ago, something that could forecast market behavior with almost impossible precision. The numbers had grown quietly, exponentially, and now it wasn't a portfolio, it was an empire hidden behind a screen. My cursor blinked on the dashboard. $4.2 billion stared back at me in clean white font. Beneath it, a list of institutions managing those assets. One name stood out like a bruised Glassview Bank, my sister's bank. I leaned back, the air leaving my lungs in a single stunned exhale. The same woman who'd humiliated me for $150 worked for a company that existed because of my fund's capital. Every bonus she bragged about, every promotion built on money she didn't even know came from me. The decision didn't feel angry. It felt inevitable. I straightened, the shaking in my hands gone. At 3 a.m., I called my legal counsel and scheduled an emergency meeting with Glassview's regional director. Tomorrow, I'd walk back into that bank, not as the quiet sister they pitied, but as their largest client. Morning light cut through the fog as I walked back toward Glassview Bank. The same doors that had hissed shut on my humiliation now parted quietly for me. I'd chosen a navy dress, simple and neat, my hair pinned low, no armor except self-control. Mr. Linton, the regional director, was waiting near the entrance, nervous, his phone clutched like a lifeline. "Ms. Dove," he said, almost bowing. "It's an honor." I gave him a small nod. His voice trembled. "This way, please." Employees looked up as I passed. Yesterday, I was invisible. Today, every whisper followed me. Veronica was standing by her glass office, mid-conversation, smile fading when she saw me. Confusion first, then irritation. She started walking over, ready to dismiss me again. Then Mr. Linton stepped forward, eyes wide with worry. "Branch Manager Veronica Hale. This is Ms. Dove, representative of Shell Code 7. The name hit her like static. She blinked. Shell Code. What I didn't answer. "Mr.?" Linton gestured toward her office. "Let's talk inside." We entered the same room where she'd once laughed about beggars. The blinds reflected faint stripes of winter light across the table. I took the visitor's chair. Mr. Linton remained standing. Veronica hovered, arms folded tight. "What's this about?" she asked. I folded my hands calmly. Shell Code 7 has concerns about Glassview's management practices, specifically this branch. Mr. Linton jumped in before she could speak. We've been instructed to perform an immediate risk reassessment, Ms. Hale. Please listen carefully. Her eyes darted between us. I don't understand. You don't need to, I said quietly. It's already been decided. We're withdrawing all assets, $4.2 billion, effective immediately. Silence. The hum of the air vent was suddenly loud. Mr. Linton's face went white. All of it, yes. And per contract, our public reason will cite loss of confidence in local management. I met Veronica's eyes. Specifically, this branch's leadership. The words landed like a hammer. She blinked rapidly, then let out a shaky laugh. Wait, this is insane. You can't just Mr. Linton cut her off. Enough. His voice cracked. Do you have any idea what this means? The stock will crash. Investors will flee. I stayed still. Calm felt like power now. Veronica turned to me, recognition dawning, disbelief mixing with fear. You, she whispered, you're M. Dove. I gave her a small, sad smile. Yesterday, you wouldn't even let me withdraw $150. Today, you just lost $4 billion. Her face broke. The confident manager collapsed into someone I barely recognized, pleading, shaking mascara streaking down her cheeks. Quinn, please, don't do this. You'll ruin me. You'll ruin us. It was never about ruining anyone, I said. It's about respect. Mr. Linton cleared his throat, his tone icy. Ms. Hale, your employment is terminated effective immediately. 2 security officers stepped forward. She stumbled as they guided her out, still crying, still whispering my name. When the door closed, I exhaled slowly. Revenge didn't feel like fire. It felt like silence, finally settling where chaos used to live. But the story didn't end there. That evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls from my parents, texts from Caleb, even a desperate voicemail from my mother. What have you done? Think of the family. Not once did anyone ask if I was okay. It was always about them, the family brand, the image, the shame. So I sent one message to the group chat. Dinner at my place, Sunday, 7 p.m. Let's talk about the family. When Sunday came, they arrived expecting an apology. The address I'd sent led to a quiet street lined with cedar trees and a modern house they'd never seen before mine. I watched from the window as their expressions changed from confusion to greed. My father straightened his tie. My mother whispered something about finally living up to her potential. I opened the door. Welcome. Inside the table was set simply wood linen, soft light. Veronica was absent, of course. My mother's first words were, "You've made your point, Quinn, but this has gone too far. Your sister is devastated." My father chimed in stern, "Fix this mess. You've embarrassed us." Caleb, ever the peacemaker, smiled thinly. "Let's all calm down. We're family." I listened. 10 minutes of lectures about loyalty, image forgiveness. Not one word about the years they ignored me. Not one apology. When they finally stopped, I walked to the sideboard and brought out a thin leather folder. I placed it in front of my father. "If we're talking about family, we should start with honesty." He frowned, opening it. Bank statements, forged invoices, shell company filings, all with Caleb's and Veronica's names. "What is this?" "Evidence," I said softly, "of how you both borrowed from grandfather's trust fund. 2 years of withdrawals disguised as consulting fees. I was the executor, remember?" The room went still. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Caleb's voice cracked. "Quinn, you don't understand. I understand perfectly," I said. "You took what he built for all of us and turned it into a personal ATM. And when it ran out, you mocked the only person who still believed in decency." My father's eyes darkened as he read the totals. The numbers were undeniable. I stood my pulse steady. "You want me to fix the family's reputation? Fine. I'm fixing it right now by ending the business." My mother looked at me, voice breaking. "What do you mean?" "This family isn't a home," I said. "It's a corporation built on image and extraction. I'm liquidating my shares." No one spoke. The fireplace crackled softly behind me. Then I looked at them, each face stunned, each secret finally exposed, and added quietly, "Grandfather left me a note. Use it when they forget who you are." I think he meant this moment. I walked to the door, opened it, and let the cold air rush in. Dinner's over. They didn't follow me. Outside, the night was crisp, the stars pale and distant. Somewhere I imagined my grandfather's steady voice, proud and calm. Justice hadn't come through rage, it had come through truth. Weeks passed and the noise faded the way storms do slowly. Then all at once, news spread about Glassview's internal audit about how both Veronica and Caleb were implicated in financial misconduct. My parents stopped calling after the first wave of headlines. Silence from them wasn't new, but for the first time, it didn't hurt. It just felt quiet. I moved through my days differently now. The house was mine, but it didn't feel like a trophy. It felt like space to breathe. Mornings began with coffee and sunlight instead of dread. My hands, once trembling with restraint, now felt steady. One afternoon, I stood in a small community garden behind the library, the one I'd helped fund years ago. A new plaque gleamed under the light, the Arthur Hale and Patterson Garden. Mrs. Patterson was there, bundled in her knitted scarf, laughing with children planting marigolds. She caught my eye and smiled a real, uncomplicated kind of warmth. I knelt beside her, pressing a seedling into the soil. The dirt was cool grounding. For years, I'd invested in systems that grew wealth. Now I was investing in something that grew life. The most valuable transfer I ever made wasn't money. It was my loyalty finally moved to where it belonged. I stayed there long after the sun dipped below the trees, watching the small leaves tremble in the wind. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval. I wasn't the quiet sister or the forgotten daughter. I was just Quinn, whole, steady, free. My grandfather's words echoed softly in my mind, "Use it when they forget who you are." I finally understood. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a boundary drawn in silence. If you've ever had to walk away from people who never saw your worth, know this: you didn't lose them. You reclaimed yourself. Tell me your story in the comments, and if mine stayed with you, hit subscribe. There's more to come.